right, good evening, everybody. Thanks for coming. As luck would have it, tonight we have a nice big crowd when we get bumped out of our own room and we end up upstairs. So hopefully we're not too crowded and everybody has a little elbow room. What we're going to do tonight is we're going to start out with our guest speaker. Then we're going to have our annual election of officers and board of directors, which will be, we'll have our 4 people running present themselves and tell us a little bit about themselves. Then we'll have our election and our regular business meeting. So if you're here for the German talk, and you don't want to stay for the meeting, that's fine. I'll let you know when we're finished with the speaker, and then we'll go ahead with our business meeting and elections. So at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Don Tolzmann.
Guten Abend, meine Damen und Herren. Good evening. How many people speak German here? Few people speak German? Yeah. Is there anybody here of German descent? And how many are you from northern Kentucky? All of you from? And about the places of origins, do some of you come from families from northwest Germany? Oldenburg, Hanover, or how many? Raise your hand for them. Okay. Southern Germany? Okay, we have a mixed group here.
German speaking Lorraine, France.
Well, I'm going to talk to you tonight, to just talk to you about researching Northern Kentucky German heritage. And I'm going to be talking about some of the books that you can look at to research the German heritage. Many of them happen to be by yours truly, because I have spent a lot of time researching and writing about German heritage, especially in Kentucky. I do have a couple of my books over here in case you might be interested. One is on Roebling, one is on Germans in the Civil War, and my new one is on the Wiedemann Brewing Company. And I guess a couple of people had family who worked with the Wiedemann Brewery. How many? A couple. So I'm glad to see you and talk about German heritage. You know, in talking about Kentucky, I think a lot of people do not associate it with German heritage. Most people, well, they think about the Kentucky Derby, Daniel Boone, and in terms of population elements, they talk about the Appalachians in the eastern part of the state, people of English origin. They talk about the bluegrass area, people also of German background, but about 1/4 of the population of Kentucky is of German heritage. It does have a very strong German heritage, mostly settled along the Ohio River, because Germans came down the Ohio River and settled along throughout the Ohio Valley. I've written a lot about German heritage in the area, and I think one of the reasons people don't know a lot about German heritage, especially in terms of research, has to do with the world wars and what happened in the 20th century when it wasn't really politically correct to be German. And I know in my research I found, to the detriment of research, so much was lost in terms of research materials, especially during the First World War. The German language, of course, was banned or removed from public schools. German church services in a lot of places ceased. And most importantly for me in my research, most of the libraries got rid of and destroyed German materials. Of course, this is true for Newport and Covington. That's why German papers were published in both of those cities. You go to either library, there's nothing there. They were destroyed. So that makes it hard to research German background and history. So I'd like to go through some of the source materials, though, that are available that you can look at to research German heritage. Many of them, as I said, are written by yours truly, because this is what I've been doing for a long time, researching German heritage. First thing you can look at for research sources are bibliographies. And One of them is a bibliography of German Americana, which is arranged geographically by state so that you can go there and look up publications that deal with Kentucky, Ohio, and Indiana with the tri-state. So this is what I recommend first of all, is looking at bibliographies of German immigration and settlement and history to look. And also, I should say, I focus primarily on print sources, books and publications. I'm pretty much sure that you're aware of internet sources, which I do find helpful, but not totally reliable, and I don't depend on them. And I think some people think they can go to the internet and that's where everything is. Well, that's not true at all, especially for things that have to do with German heritage. So that is a basic bibliography to look at. For many years before, until I recently retired, I was at the University of Cincinnati, and I put together a catalog of the German Americana collection there. This is also an extensive bibliography of the materials at the University of Cincinnati. Also arranged geographically, so you can look up publications in German and English. And that was published in 1990, and I indexed for that publication all German American historical journals that have been published before 1990, both in English and German. So this is a place to look for information, for example, on Germans in Kentucky. Indexes, after you look at bibliographies, you want to perhaps look at some indexes. And one thing that I put together was an Ohio Valley German biographical index. And I indexed the names that were listed in German histories that were published in this area. This index lists about 5,000 names. So anybody who is anybody in business, German societies, German churches, they're going to be indexed here, about 5,000 people. So a lot of people have been able to find biographical listings on an ancestor by means of this source. After I published that one, then I put out a supplement to it that also lists about 5,000 names. With the first source, I went through about 5 German language histories. This one, I went through about a dozen histories in German and English for the tri-state. So these two sources, again, anybody who's anybody, or even listed in a local history, might be here. After doing that, then after I covered the tri-state very thoroughly of all German histories in English and German, then I did the broader Midwestern area for this upper Midwest German biographical index. In these 3 indexes, 15,000 people are listed. So, I mean, if you're looking for somebody in your background, they were a member of this German church or a German society, this is a place where you could go to look up. And I'm not sure how many people are aware of these sources. Has anybody used any of these? Or not aware of them? You've got to try it if you're interested in tracking down your family history. How many has somebody who was a member of a German church here in the area? A member of a German society? This is a place to look for a reference to them. Another valuable index is this one, early 19th century German settlers in Ohio, mainly Cincinnati and environs. Kentucky, and other states. Indexes a lot of the records of the German Pioneer Society. Has anybody heard of that? The German Pioneer Society, which was founded in 1869 in Cincinnati, and then it had branches in Covington and Newport, and had extensive amounts of information, biographical, that would be of interest. So this is another valuable place to look for information. I did mention the newspapers, many of which were unfortunately destroyed in the wars, but some of them have been preserved, especially those published in Cincinnati, where they're on microfilm. And they usually took a general regional coverage for this entire area. And has anybody found biographies in a German newspaper here in the area, or looked at them? Well, this would be a great place to go to look up births, deaths, marriages, baptisms. This is a German newspaper. Cincinnati Freie Presse, 1874-1920. A great index to look at in the German newspapers. And one thing I found about it, looking in the German newspapers, they usually provide more extensive biographical information, especially all handies and cell phones are forbidden. But I found in the German newspapers, usually a lot of the sources, auf Wiedersehen, they really contain more extensive information. Like in the English language press, they will list somebody when they died and where the funeral is. But a lot of times in the German newspaper, information has been given by the family. There'll be extensive amounts of information about that person, personal items of information, very interesting. A lot of times extensive articles are written about them. So I helped a lot of people find things like that, and the first time they've been able to find these pieces of information. This was a general interest newspaper. There's also indexes to the Volksfreund, which was the German Catholic newspaper. So the different denominations did have their own press. There was a German Methodist newspaper, German Lutheran publications, German Jewish publications. So if you don't find something, for example, in the Freie Presse, you can go to one of the denominational papers. This, by the way, I helped find this photograph of the people who worked at that German newspaper, the Volksfreund, which was in over the Rhine. They didn't have laptops and computers then, so they needed that many people to set the type at that time. But of course, we were a center of German printing and publishing.
Sir, are these publications available in the Kenton County Library?
They are at the Cincinnati Public Library. The indexes are, I'm sure. The newspapers, probably, that I don't know, but they would be at the Public Library in Cincinnati. But these books that I mentioned, I would think would be at the Kenton County Library. They have a very good history and genealogy department. Yeah, feel free to ask me a question as you proceed here. General works, some things I might mention that are of interest. The first description of Cincinnati and other Ohio settlements, Johannes Heckewelder was a German Moravian missionary, and he traveled down the Ohio River to Fort Washington in 1792. And he wrote the very first description of this region and the Ohio River Valley, especially Cincinnati. Very interesting report that he talks about settling in this area on both sides of the river. He found that 1792, this is only several years after the end of the American Revolution, he had already found Germans here in the area that were coming down the Ohio River, because that's the route most German people came. The early colonial settlers came across the Cumberland Gap into southern Kentucky. But this will provide you some very interesting descriptions of the area. And this was a book too, which is translated into English here. 1792, that book was published in Germany, very widely read in an important journal there. And it's an indication of why did people come to this area? Why would they want to come to this wilderness, which at that time was pretty dangerous? It was filled with Indians at the time, Miami, Shawnee, and Delaware. And up until 1794, you didn't want to go outside the walls of Fort Washington because you might get scalped. It was dangerous. But in this book, he described how beautiful this country was, how beautiful the landscape was, how beautiful the Ohio River was, how there was rich game and plentiful game here. Believe it or not, there were still bear and deer. Of course, there were still plenty of deer. I have trouble with them myself. This kind of book is, and there would be others that would follow. This is why people came here, because they saw this was a beautiful landscape. The land was cheap. In some cases, you could settle in the hinterlands and just set up your own homestead. So it created an image of this area. And 1792, the year of the French Revolution, means the beginning of 25 years of Napoleonic Wars and French warfare. After that period was over, this is why people started immigrating here for a better and peaceful life in this country. Another book is Kentucky's German Pioneers. This is a book I translated from German, and it traces the beginnings of German immigration and settlement in Kentucky from the very beginnings, going back to even the time of Daniel Boone, who was from a Pennsylvania German county. He brought Pennsylvania Germans with him. He actually spoke German. And so this book begins with the very beginnings of German settlement and how they came over the Cumberland Gap. But then it follows it up to the later 18th century, when Germans were coming down the Ohio River. It does contain chapters on Campbell County, Boone, and Kenton. It begins really going back to this in the 1780s and 90s. And it was written by Heinrich Rottermann, who was from northern Germany. And the value of that book is he went back and looked through the land records, the court records, and tracked down all people of German birth and background in northern Kentucky. It traces the history up to about, I'd say, 1850. So if you have anybody who has German roots going back that far, there you have some, okay. And it has a good name index. This was originally published in the German Pioneer, the journal that was published by the German Pioneer Society. And so that is something to look at. And again, it's interesting, like that book too, in German, these have never been translated. And what's important about for our area in writing our history and telling the story about the greater Cincinnati area, northern Kentucky, if you don't understand German or have German sources in translation, you won't understand the history of this area. And I try to go to German source materials, especially when I go to the English language sources. I find often they make mistakes, they don't translate the words correctly, they misspell German names all over the place. So I don't rely too much on them. I try to go back to the German sources. Now another book, this was translated by a friend of mine, then I edited it, the German Chronicle and the History of the Ohio Valley. This was a German book that was published in 1864 and covers German immigration and settlement up to 1860. And it is, like a lot of these German sources, very meticulous, very detailed, has a lot of names in it, has a chronological arrangement, so you can go year by year and tracking down the German immigration and settlement of the area. This was a book, The German Element in the Ohio Valley, Ohio, Kentucky, and Indiana, by Gustav Karner. This was published in Cincinnati in 1883. This was another book I translated. The previous book goes up to about 1860. This one goes up to about 1880. Again, a very detailed book. And in tracing genealogy, I've seen different approaches. Some people only focusing on their specific family and the records, but it's helpful to look at the broader context and history of German immigration to the area and to get a flavor for the immigration in general that's coming to the area. I know I've met a couple of people here, their families come from the same parts of Germany. So your family, when they came here, probably had friends and family here. How many of your background people have friends and family that already here? They usually immigrated because they had friends and family here. So it's good to be aware of the broader historical context. Another book I have is on the Ohio Tal, or the Ohio Valley. This has a number of chapters on the image of the area. What did people write about in Germany about this area? Why were they attracted here? It also has history of some of the German settlements in our region. Now another book you might want to look at is just a guide to the German heritage of the region, to the greater Cincinnati area, which just provides a broad overview and survey of German heritage in the greater Cincinnati area. And this is one of these Arcadia type picture books that I've done a couple of those, which is a pictorial history of German immigration and settlement in the tri-state area. And that has about 200 pictures in it. I did a follow-up on that on customs and traditions. Maybe some of you are interested also in researching German customs and traditions in your family. So I go into that in this book. That's another important part of tracing your heritage. And as we're moving up now into the fall, I might ask in customs and traditions, how many of you celebrate St. Nicolaus? St. Nicholas? Hey, I'm glad to see that. I'm glad to see that. A good German custom and tradition. And that is pretty much a tradition and custom you'll find in German heritage areas. And by the way, too, our area here, the greater Cincinnati area, is somewhat unique. There are many places, of course, of German settlement throughout the United States, but there are only two other places like our area, St. Louis and Milwaukee. We have the strongest concentration of German immigration in the United States, along with St. Louis and Milwaukee. There's no other place like our area outside of those three cities. Another collection of essays, and you might see my name coming up a lot because that's what I have been doing for decades. But another collection of essays on German immigration and settlement. Now, special topics, some of the things that I got into in special topics, relating especially to northern Kentucky, was the book I did on Covington's German heritage, and writing about the German heritage of Covington. Actually, a lot of these things that I've done is because I thought, I can't believe nobody's ever done anything on that. Covington, one of the most German settlement areas in the region, does have an extensive name index to it. Lists members of some of the German societies in Covington, histories of the German churches in Covington. Any Covington German people here? A couple Covington German? Okay, good. And that is a recent book that I brought out. I translated from German. Cincinnati Germans in the Civil War, with supplements on Ohio, Kentucky, and Indiana. Actually, this was a book too, like on a lot of these things that I translated, was written in 1901 and had never been translated. And when we were coming up several years ago on the 150th anniversary of the Civil War, I thought, this is something that should be made known. All of the German regiments that came out of our area and fought in the Civil War. Of course, Kentucky was neutral early on, so people had to come across the river and join the regiments on the Ohio side. But a very important story that had never been told. Anybody have a Civil War background? Yeah. And there's even a lady back in that, raise your head in the back. She had, I was working with her, one of her ancestors was in the 9th Ohio Regiment, the Turner Regiment, an all-German regiment. And so I go into some of the histories of the German regiments in that book. I found really a fascinating story to hear, to write about and edit this book about the German regiments. The German regiments were, of course, all German-speaking. They introduced Prussian military drill and techniques into the U.S. Army. And when the 9th Ohio Regiment was formed, when your ancestor joined that regiment, the Germans, they made a couple, of course, Americans really wanted the Germans in the Union Army because they had fought in the 1848 Revolution. They'd studied at military academies, but they made a couple of demands and preconditions on joining the Union Army. And I don't know, I'll ask, they had to do with dietary things, ingredients. Can anybody guess what their demands might have been?
Beer. Beer.
Yeah. Well, the first one was they didn't like that spongy white American style bread. They wanted some black bread or brown bread made out of rye. The other thing was they wanted to have a beer wagon, so right behind the food wagon there had to be a beer wagon. The first request for that came in a New York German regiment, actually, but only in German regiments in the Union Army were beer wagons allowed. So, and also, not only that, they also had a schnapps wagon also. So, these are some interesting things about them. Another thing that relates to northern Kentucky was Johann August Roebling, John Roebling, who came to Covington, well, first in 1846, and then he came back in 1856, and then again in the 1860s complete work on that bridge. He had many German craftsmen who worked on that bridge. Stonemasons worked on that bridge, mechanics, carpenters for the bridge. Did anybody have an ancestor who worked on that bridge? Okay, because that's another thing I'm working on, is compiling a list of the people who worked on that bridge. It was another thing that attracted Germans to our area. Of course, when you came down the Ohio River, a marker that you got to our area was seeing that bridge, because then you knew when you came down the river, or you came up the river from New Orleans, then you knew you were in our area. The other thing, that was something that even attracted Germans to our country and to this area, that a German had made that bridge. Really one of the most unique bridges in the country. Survived the flood of the 1930s, as you all know. But this coming year we'll celebrate its 150th anniversary. And think about the Brent Spence Bridge and all these other bridges built since World War II that are falling apart, right, and are going to cost maybe $1 billion to rebuild. Here's a bridge. That's the way to build a bridge. And finally, special work that I had worked on. I wrote a book on Christian Moerlein, and I became interested in the beer barons and writing about them. Many of these people who came here, like Christian Moerlein, they came here with a few dollars in their pocket. They looked around, they saw these German people and say, you know, it'd be a good idea to get into the brewing industry. And so after writing about him, and I've written about several of the brewers, and then I thought to myself, it seems to me that northern Kentucky has been overlooked in the brewing area, and I think in a broader historical framework, northern Kentucky, in a certain sense, has been ignored sometimes. Another topic. So I wanted to cover George Wiedemann and his life story and how he came here and worked in originally in the Over the Rhine district at the Kaufmann Brewery, which now is part of the new Moerlein company, and how then I think what he thought about by 1870 was, not only is this a good business, but there aren't that many breweries over in northern Kentucky, so rather than going to over the Rhine, I'm going to go to northern Kentucky. And he built this magnificent brewery. So that's my recent work on that topic, and I'm interested in telling the story about some of the other beer barons and brewers, especially in northern Kentucky, so I'm collecting information on that. So this is a brief overview of some of the books that I think would be helpful for you to look at for looking at German heritage in northern Kentucky. I have a couple of them available here if you're interested. But I'm not going to talk all evening, so that is it, and I thank you for your attention.
Now's the time to ask.
Yes, what are the two books on the table? Did you bring those?
A lady brought these in. The Turner descendant. She did bring one book here. It's called the Abendschule, or the Evening School. It's like a family magazine that people would read in German. It was published in St. Louis. A popular magazine that people would read. Very beautifully bound. This one is the works of Schiller, the German poet Schiller. Very beautifully bound. And that's another thing that I tell people too. If you have any German books or materials to save them and collect them. A lot of these materials are valuable. And again, I go back to World War I. a lot of things like that, these were thrown out of libraries or burned. So if you do have them, hang on to them. And if you're interested in getting an evaluation on them, I'd be happy to talk to you about them also.
Don, if we go to one of those indexes that has the 5,000 names in it, and we open that index, what are we going to find in there? Is it simply a list of names, or does it refer us to?
That's a good question. If you go to an index, then you find a name, you'll find a reference to the particular history that name was listed in.
Okay.
So then you could go to that source, check out the name index at the end, and look that up. So again, it's a great place to go to, rather than, again, and I have students in my classes, we'll go to the internet, and they think, oh, I can't find anything. That is not the place to really find definitive information. Go to indexes that bring you into German sources.
You know, the Geta factory out there was at one time part of the Brewing and Brewing Company.
Mm-hmm.
And it was bought by Common and Raycamp, and Common and Raycamp and Hanneken merged, and that was the last Hanneken dairy there. And then Bavarian sits up on the hill, and the Heidelberg Brewing Company used to be down on, it seemed to me it was down on Philadelphia Street, if I remember right. And Covington. And the area is just full of German heritage. I was born down in your Mother of God's church, and I could tell you some stories I was encouraged to believe. But
I think, Mr. Hanneken, maybe everybody knows him from the Hanneken Dairy, but I think you were telling me one time that the Goebel Park, the German and the Irish kids would fight. By the way, anybody who does have pictures of any of these breweries, please let me know. Heidelberg or Bavarian or some of the breweries. I'm interested in trying to find them. A lot of these things get lost.
There's a Meister Brewery in Alexandria.
Pardon?
There's a Meister Brewery in Alexandria. On Washington Avenue. The building's still there.
The building is still there.
The building's still there.
Is that the Napa Auto?
Next, 2 doors down.
2 doors down.
Do you know the date of it or the?
I have it written down.
I forget, maybe you would know, I'm not sure. I know that there was caves in the hillside where they chilled the beer, which is now underneath them, and the caves are still there, but they've been covered over, and Bishop Ross High School is built on top of the caves.
Right.
They're located on the hillside, yeah.
I have a list for you, that brewery's included.
You have a list of
The
breweries?
start
Okay.
date and when they want to do this. So I'll get that.
Okay, yeah, I'd be interested in that. Yes, ma'am?
Are there any indexes of Germans who applied for American citizenship, just that? And would it tell like where they came from and, their origin in Germany?
There is one that has been published. It's published by the Hamilton County Genealogical Society, and it's naturalization records. And it does list, there must be, it's about a book about that thick. I should probably had a copy of that, but it does list the date of immigration, the arrival, the port, and I think where they settled, and then when they applied for citizenship, and when they actually got citizenship.
Would that be tri-state, or would that just be?
Well, the thing is, it doesn't mean anybody from, like, say, Northern Kentucky, a lot of times they'd apply for citizenship over in Hamilton County. They didn't necessarily apply for citizenship here.
No, I didn't know. how that
Most
worked.
Germans did apply for citizenship over across the river. It must have been the central naturalization center.
Right.
So does anybody have naturalization documents? Maybe some of you might have that.
Sort of.
You do have a, one caveat I might add to that, which is of interest, is a small percentage of people who immigrated here in the 19th century never obtained citizenship. They just came here, settled down, and became Americans as their descendants, but they never bothered to get citizenship papers.
Yeah, the one paper I just discovered, was at my hands up in Columbus. He stayed here, Adam Weber, in Dayton, Kentucky, and for 10 years. And that was in 1850 to 1860. He went home, and they issued him a certificate of citizenship from the city of Herxheim. And he brought that paper back. And then 2 years later, after that, he became a citizen and he got his naturalization. But he actually had a document from Germany saying he is no longer.
Do you have that in German?
Yes.
Do you have it translated?
Vaguely. But that's
Well, a lot of times what that document is a release of citizenship.
right. That's yeah.
Because when you would apply, in Germany, when you apply for immigration, you will have to get a passport that releases you from citizenship. It would say that for the next 90 days you can immigrate, but you are released from citizenship. And then you could
Well, actually,
immigrate.
he was here
So
for
he
10
might-
years.
Yeah, and without getting released from citizenship, I don't know where he was from, but he might have still been at military age, and they could have tried to draft him, although it's probably unlikely he would have gone back.
Right.
But you were still subject to military obligations if you weren't released from citizenship. Also, which is of interest too, that in applying for immigration, you have to get a release from citizenship. In most cases, it was a standard thing, just you get released. But in some cases, depending on what principality you were in, of course there were 38 German states, some state might say, no, you can't immigrate. You're a military age. The other thing, they might say, you're a dentist. We need you. You cannot immigrate. So it wasn't a given that you could get permission to immigrate.
That was the reason why he was gone for 10 years, because of that, because they weren't issuing them.
Okay, that is interesting.
His 16th birthday, he was smuggled out to America.
Like my ancestor was 19 years old, and I have a copy of the ship manifest with him on it.
Mhm.
But a lot of times when you get into, a lot of times, the guy wrote it down. Fortunately, he could write his name. And a lot of them, that's where the mispronounced names came on the manifest. And that's what they lived with the rest of their life. And of course, when he came, my grandfather came over here in 1891, he came into Baltimore Harbor. And that was before Ellis Island was open. And I think I gave you a copy of it, where he kept a diary from the day that he left Germany to the day he came to America. And it states that he was met in Baltimore by this guy. They got on a train and came to Ohio, of where he took a job. That was the best thing. I have a little book.
Well, that's important too, because the port of entry, Baltimore and New Orleans are the two ports that are important for our area, not New York or Philadelphia. Did anybody here have Baltimore or New Orleans?
That's where Adam came through.
Yeah, those are the major ports for us, not New York.
Don, I have, my grandfather came over from Germany in 1870 with two brothers, and they started a dairy right across the street from the city building here.
A dairy?
A dairy, yeah.
Huh.
And they were part of the early dairy community here in the Wilder area. They actually were the original dairy in the area. After World War I, they lost touch with their relatives in Twistringen. And about 20 years ago, some of those relatives got in touch with my godfather, and with the question, are you related to us? And we found out that we confirmed that there was a connection, and they send over their relatives about every 2 years to visit when we have a big reunion, annual reunion here
Wonderful.
in Melbourne. It's a delight they have those ties again after being separated for 5 decades, maybe 6 decades. So that got me looking into my other grandparents and great-grandparents, and I was able to identify the cities or villages where they came from.
Wow.
And that in Germany, and I also went ahead and looked via the internet to see if there's anyone with the same last name in those villages, and sure enough, there are. So now the question becomes, how do I contact, or where do I go? Now I know where the ancestors came from, the exact, in some cases, the neighborhood. How can I make contacts, I don't speak German, and to see if I can even go back further into
There are genealogy, the best genealogy society locally is the Hamilton County Genealogical Society. So I would suggest you get in touch with them, and they have a German group within that society, and they can help you how to get in touch with those villages. Could be to the government office, the library, or the churches, and you'd be able to track that down that way.
I'll do that. And I just thought of one of the things that we get compliments from our German cousins, and they come to Cincinnati, is they love not only the beer, the Cincinnati Reds, because they don't have, baseball's not as big a thing there, but they're intrigued with baseball, and they love going to the Reds games. And of course, they're not as much interested in our German fare that we have here, but they love macaroni. Because they don't, in their community, Costa Rica, they don't have macaroni, so
Our neighbors.
Well, it's the same thing, when my relatives come to Germany, the last place they want to go to is a German restaurant. They want to go to a Chinese restaurant or an Italian restaurant. Mostly Chinese they want to eat.
Here in America, we're all gung-ho with this genealogy, and we're smacked up against their shoreline. What are they doing? What are the Germans doing to meet us there at the shoreline, or are they? Or are they? Do they have the same interest to see where some of their ancestors have gone?
Oh yeah, they're very interested in Germany. They want to find out what happened to their descendants who came over here, because especially in some parts of Germany, like northwestern Germany, say 1/3 of a village would leave. They left a big chunk, came over here. So yes, they're very interested. A lot of these villages have local genealogy societies. How
would we find them on the internet? It would, like for Campbell County, we've dumped a lot of information on our website for US Gen Web. Is there a German type of US Gen, or Gen Web that would give us indexes, names, other outside of Ancestry, who just flood you with nothing?
There are directories of genealogical organizations in Germany. I don't have that reference with me, but that is available. You might also want, as I suggested this gentleman, contact the Hamilton County Genealogy Society, because they are very advanced in genealogy research. They have there's one of the Mormon libraries in Cincinnati where they ordered all the church books from German villages that sent immigrants to our area. So when you go to this Mormon library, has anybody been there?
Oh, yeah.
Well, you see there, it's like seeing the hometowns for the Germans of the tri-state area. They have the church books there. So I would work through the Hamilton County Genealogy Society, and you might want to go then to that Mormon library also, because they've done such a wonderful job for making copies. As a matter of fact, the Mormons have done such a wonderful job that churches and societies in Germany, they order a lot of their records from the Mormons because they went around systematically making copies and microfilming church books and so on.
Have you ever heard that in World War II, a lot of Germans did genealogy to prove they were not Jewish?
Right.
And if you wanted to join, was it the brown shirts or whatever, you had to do, I think it was 50 years, but for them, they had to do 100 years.
Yeah, that was called the Ahnenpass, or the ancestral passport, that you had to have a genealogy for 4 generations
Yeah.
showing that you were German. So they are helpful to have. A lot of
Is there an
people
index to
kept
that?
those. Pardon?
Is there an index to that?
Not that I know of.
And were all
But
those...
most families in Germany at that time then had to, during the Third Reich, you'd have to have an Ahnenpass, like you want to get a government position, or you'd have to prove, they'd have to prove your ancestry.
Were those all kept after the war? And I mean, are they kept somewhere?
I'd
And
say after the war, a lot of people destroyed them because they didn't want to have them, because they usually have a big swastika stamped on the front. So they didn't want to, a lot of these things were destroyed. Some people did save them, but they were valuable for that.
Oh, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry I didn't welcome all of our visitors tonight. We have a lot of people here that don't usually come. So I want to welcome you, and if you're here for the first time, you're most welcome to come to any of our meetings you're interested in. Check our website, or you can call the office on Tuesday, Thursday, or Saturday, and we can give you information. We're very glad you're here tonight. So at this time, we're going to, anybody who has another place to be, you're welcome to leave before we start our election.
960, somewhere around there. But my hope is to spread the word to people, and that people might have, you know, boxes that have been packed away. There might be younger people that have stuff that was maybe their parents or grandparents. You know, any information, anything about Cold Spring, you can get a hold of me through the city. I got an email address and voicemail and stuff through the city building there. But I have a Facebook group. For anybody that's on Facebook, you can look it up as Cold Spring 75th Anniversary. You can request to join the group. But I'm just trying to get the word out there just to let people know, you know, we're going to be doing some formal recognitions for like maybe the oldest citizen, families that have been around the whole 75 years, just different things like that. My dad's family is a Schmidt family, so we go way back, so you probably know some of my uncles or whatever. But so I just wanted to kind of just introduce myself, let people know that I am looking for that. If you can kind of help spread the word, it's like I always tell people, you know, if gossip and stuff can spread so quick, so can something that's positive and something good. And like I said, it's going to be June the 25th of next year. We do have the cruise-in and the concert coming back. The Hot Wax Band that was there, they're now the Bel Airs. They are coming back as part of it. So it's going to be like a whole day long kind of thing. There's going to be stuff for kids of all ages, you know, different activities for kids and adults. So I'm just trying to get the word out to please, you know, help me spread the word, pictures. And I'm hoping at the first of the year we're going to get some, maybe the cable people, somebody to help us video, just, you know, some old timers, so to speak, that might have any stories or memories, just like maybe 15-minute videos of people that we can, you know, preserve. And the one final thing that I've heard rumored that there is a time capsule buried somewhere around here. Don't know if it was from the city, don't know if it was from Holly Hill, somewhere in the era of 1950, 51. Somebody said it could be possibly be later. So I'm just trying, nobody's really been able to verify it for sure, so I'm just trying, another thing I'm trying to get out there to see if anybody's ever heard about it, how to go about verifying it, you know, anything like that. So, like I said, you can just contact me through the city building. That would probably be the easiest way, that email and voicemail.
Have you been in contact with the Rust?
I've got the name. I know that they've done a lot.
For the city for years.
Right. I've got a whole list of people to contact. after the first of the year, because I know come January 1, I mean, I'm gonna start really kicking into gear. Right now, I'm still just trying to really get the word out, let people know about it. It is starting to get out there, you know, and people are starting to know about it here and there, but really the best thing is word of mouth. You know, so if I can get, like I said, gossip and spread, so it's something, you know, good for the city, so I would appreciate any help.
Give everybody your name again.
Lisa Schmidt-Kavanaugh. So.
If you would like to.
Okay, before we start our election tonight, I'd like to invite our 4 candidates who are running for one of our board of director seats to briefly state who they are, introduce themselves to the groups. So we'll start out with Mark Thomas. Would you like to say a few words?
47 years old, lifelong resident of Alexandria, married with 3 kids, captain on the Southern Campbell Fire Department. This is my second stint as a member of the Historical Society. We're interested in the genealogy side of it and hopefully do some fundraising to boost up some funds.
Thank you. Glenn?
Hi, my name is Glenn Elsner, and I've been in Northern Kentucky all my life. I was born in Newport, was there 20 years, got married in Fort Thomas for 22 years, and we're in Cold Springs 22 years coming up now on Glen Ridge Drive out there. Been a college instructor most of my life. I retired from Gateway Community Technical College after 32 years. In 2007, I've been with Cincinnati State Technical and Community College as an adjunct for the last 8 years. Got started on a genealogical sleigh ride here by buying a book from a guy named Jim Reese. And in 2002 was the first meeting that my wife and I went to at the church in Dayton. At the time, since then, we've tried to do as much with the Genealogical Society as we can. My wife has currently 15,000 people on her database that she recently uploaded to Ancestry, so she's been working on it since about 1980, before they invented computers. So, but we enjoy everything that Ken has arranged and the society has done. We think it's important that the community understands what their heritage is all about. And it's one of those things where, you know, where you are or what you are is really where you were and when. So understanding where you know, your beginnings lets you know what explains a lot why people are where they are and behave the way they do. So when you can't ask me why, I was excited. So
Thank you. Jeff?
My name is Jeff Weimer. I was on the board for 18 years. Took a leave to take care of my parents, and was wanting to come back. Win or lose, I'll still be an active, very active member. I work at NKU, and that's it. Thank you.
Okay. And Carol?
I'm not telling you my age. I put notes together. My name is Carol J. Rich. I live in Bellevue, originally from Newport. Moved to Bellevue when I was about 12 years old. Graduated from Bellevue High School. Went to NKU. I was a late bloomer, but I did it. I finished. Then I went to the University of Louisville. Any other cards in here? My degree is in social work, and I have licenses in Kentucky and Ohio. My work history is I worked at North Key Community Care for 10 years. I worked in the alcohol and drug-free department. I was the manager of that program. I worked at Cardinal Hill Outpatient Rehab for 5 years. I'm not running for office, but this is kind of... and then I worked at Maple Knoll Communities over in Cincinnati, and you probably have heard of it. It's one of the best places to live, and can be expensive. But anyway, I served on our school board in Bellevue for 18 years under 2 superintendents. And I served on city council for 4 years. I ran for mayor and lost. And then I was appointed to Gateway Board by a governor, and I served on that board for 6 years. I'm on the Bellevue Education Foundation, which we do fundraising for our school, and I love doing that. I am 2 years on our Foster Care Review Board for Kenton County, and that's really interesting. 1 meeting a month, and we review the cases that go to the judge to make sure everything is going okay for that foster child. I do volunteer work with the health department, and I'm involved in political groups. I work at our church in the senior center. I'm at Kentucky Retirement System. I go to a lot of NKU events when they have them. I love to read, I love to travel, especially I like World War II. I like to study that. I do genealogy research. I'm reading a book right now called Free Spirit. It's about a young man that was raised in Berkeley, California by a flower child. His mother was a flower child. Really interesting. And my mom is 94 years old. She keeps me pretty busy. We do a lot of things together. I've even had her come here, but it's kind of hard because she can't hear real good. I have a story. Can I tell you a story? Do you have enough time? Okay. My mother kept telling me about a fire that our family was in, or in our house on 322 Elm Street in Newport. And our family used to take trips to Batesville, Indiana, because our family lived there. And I was about 4 or 5 years old. And I don't remember any of this. Well, I never asked her these questions when she was younger because I didn't know. Now she can't remember. So I did some research and couldn't find anything. And my nephew, my maiden name is Delaney, Irish, and he met a girl in Newport, a young girl. And he was visiting their grandmother's, at her grandmother's house. And up on the wall was a framed picture. And he goes up to look at the framed picture. And in it, it's the story from the Kentucky Post, I believe it is, about the fire. And it was in 1947. The family, we were out of town, and it was a 2-family house. The house is still there, 322 Elm. We lived on the 2nd floor. Another family lived on the 1st floor. And the fire, the man that started the fire as a cigarette in a chair, he died. But the rest of the family got out. Had we been there, we probably would not have made it out. So we did come back from Indiana in the middle of the night. I remember them saying something about that. But I found this, so I'm going to pass it around so you can see about our family. I think it's kind of neat. Thanks.
All right, thank you. All right.
Wow. I didn't write a single check last month. We took in $24 in dues, $150.65 in donations. Our essay contest was funded for $225. We sold $59 in publications, $20 for copies. The interest came through, 45 cents. And then we mailed out some things for a person who had called and requested some things for $6.35. And we recycled some of the old broken equipment up at the office, and we got a big whopping $20 for it. So all in all, we started out with $10,650.79. We took in $505.45, leaving us an ending balance of $11,156.24.
Very good. Do you have minutes from last month?
I do.
Okay.
Any comments?
Yep, Brad.
Okay, we met here last month on the 8th of October. Steve did the call to order by thanking the City of Wilder for the use of their meeting facility. He then introduced Marty Schaefer from the Aviation Museum of Kentucky. Marty presented an interesting look at the World War I flying aces with an emphasis on 4 aces who were from Kentucky. Very good presentation. Richard read the readings from the minutes that was held on the 10th of September. We had several reports. Steve gave the treasurer's report. Last month we had a balance of $10,650.34. Membership was at 260. Jan was looking for articles for the newsletter And Marvin gave a report on the cemetery in Clairville that's currently under investigation, and also reported that the VFW worked on cleaning up the James Shaw Cemetery. From office business, Steve gave a report on the photo albums. He's been scanning the negatives and pictures for the collection and had about 100 scanned at that time. We completed re-indexing of 13,000 veteran names. That was completed. We had some donations. There was a book from Nancy Orlando titled God's Hill. Ann Painter donated a picture of A.J. Jolly. Chester Nelson donated his World War II uniform. Okay, there was a discussion about the society's sign in the front of the courthouse. We're going to make some modifications to the sign because it's visually, the lettering is small and it's hard to read. We did some cleanup in the office and the library and the museum. The front office had been cleaned up. Line cabinets were moved, and the 500,000 negatives from the Gray collection have been moved into the research library. And we also were working on removing old technology. We received a quote for approximately $8,000 for the purchase of a new microfiche reader. Jan had submitted a request for $2,500, but the cost was still beyond the means of the current capital, so that was shelved. And finally, in the announcements, Marvin gave an update on the honor flight that honored women veterans. 128 people took the trip to Washington. There were about 1,000 people at the airport to welcome them back. And Martha Pelfrey held the flag for the DAR.
Thank you very much.
And that's it.
Jan, do you have our current membership?
266.
Okay, thank you. All right, at this time, we're going to start with our reports. Like you mentioned, the sign out in front of our building. The group next door to us in the building in the Conservation District warned that their sign was too close to the road. Fiscal Court decided to remove both signs and combine them into one. We ended up at the bottom. All the lettering was too small for us. Some people thought we closed, that we didn't have a sign anymore. It's all there, but it's too small. So we're working with the Fiscal Court, and it's probably going to be us taking the letters off. We're going to send it back to the company, and we're going to eliminate some stuff that's on ours and make the rest of the letters bigger, probably a red background with white letters, so they'll show up better. So there'll be a different demarcation point between the top and the bottom, so they'll see us more. So that's in the process. Okay, Richard, we're talking about gifts and donations.
The Campbell County Fiscal Court gave us a box of pictures. There were 4 or 5 pictures of old county officials, Jim Murphy, Bernie Sandfoss, Teddy Bertelsman, and one that's unidentified. I'll probably find it if I take the frame off. Didn't want to work on that yet. We also got 5 pictures of the new courthouse from them. They're really neat and might make a good display once we find room for them. But the new courthouse over various years. We did get, we've got a book of paperwork and ledgers from Schneider Farms, which looks like it's basically their labor information, how many hours people work. So figure out how to put that on display. And then on Monday, Marvin brought us a box of old pictures from various people at St. Peter and Paul. They look like they're late 1800 pictures, like the carte de visites and cabinet cards. Really neat old pictures, and he also brought a few military patches and work on getting those available.
Okay, History Day report.
History Day is March 19th next year. Actually, our keynote speaker will be Mr. Tolzmann, talking about the Reveling Suspension Bridge. We had our last planning, our most recent planning meeting this past Saturday, and we're in good shape in terms of getting all the speakers lined up. We've got a couple of slots we're still finishing, but everything's going well right now, and we'll have our next meeting in January. But right now, everything's in good shape.
Thank you. Jan, anything on the newsletter?
Newsletter will be out hopefully by the end of December. It will be the January issue. Several people have already given me articles. If you have anything, get it to me by hopefully the 1st of December, because I'm going to be trying to get it all put together so that I can run it off between Christmas and New Year's, and then get it mailed out.
Emails and correspondence.
Yeah. Mark Minch was here. We helped him get some information on some Southgate veterans of World War I who were killed, and they're going to make some kind of a plaque for that. So we were instrumental in helping him verify who they were. As he mentioned, we had written for a grant for our microfilm reader. We did get some donations already tonight from the letter that went out to you all with the reminder. We got some inquiries from other people saying, what would it take? What we need is for a business to help us. I've looked for grants everywhere, and they all want a project. This isn't a project, it's a piece of equipment that we need.
For projects.
Yeah. We've already are figuring out that if we get this new machine, we'll be the only one in the Campbell County to have a microfilm reader. And it's not only going to read the film, it's going to take our gray photography collection, which is all the negatives that the gray photography company saved over their many years as photographers. This machine will convert those negatives to pictures. So that's another reason that we need to get this machine. If you know of a business that does matching funds, like if you work for some place that you think could give us a sizable donation, I don't know, anything you can think of, local businesses that could come to our assistance here, let us know who they are, or you contact them, we'd be happy to do that.
Or anybody who had a good year and just needs a tax write-off.
There you go. There you go. We also already got a volunteer for our phone list. Ruth, I've already told Ruth the name of another lady who answered right away after I sent the letter out. So somebody has volunteered to help out there.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, one more thing. This just came in today, and it's late notice for our meeting, but November 14th, Saturday in Frankfurt at the Kentucky Historical Society, in honor of Veterans Day, they're having a session on researching military records in Kentucky. Brandon Sloan is the presenter, and if you're interested, you can read about it. I'll leave it right here.
Okay, thank you. There's no cemetery report tonight. Marvin is with one of his grandchildren this evening for some kind of program, so he couldn't make it. Veterans information, Pam, anything?
We're continuing to add veterans to our collection, and if any of you are veterans or know a veteran, check our index online or give us a call. We'll let you know if we have their information on file. If not, we have these forms available at the office, and we can mail them out to you, or you can stop by and pick them up and fill them out so that we have your veteran on file. We're still over 13,000 and counting on the veteran names. I will mention this too. This was mentioned in the minutes, but it was such a wonderful night when Marvin and Martha and I and Joyce Freeman, we went over to welcome the all-women's honor flight. It was really something to see. And I had the opportunity to interview Colleen Mallory, who served in the military, and we have a lot of pictures, and I'm finishing up the article now, and it'll be in Jan's January newsletter. So I hope you're able to take the time to read it. It's pretty amazing what this organization is doing for our veterans.
Colleen's from Campbell County, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I have a friend. She was in the Waves.
Yeah.
Waves. And on November 17th, she's up at Baptist Convalescent right now. She'll be 100 years old.
Wow. Wow. Are you going to go visit?
We already did. I visited her. But we're having a visitation for her. It's just not a birthday party. It's just a visitation. It's going to be in Bellevue, but a lot of her son is an attorney here in Kentucky, Northern Kentucky. and he sent out invitations so that we could just go and greet her and.
Is she a
I'll
Campbell
tell you
County,
more
is she a
later.
Campbell County resident?
Yes.
Because I'd love to get some pictures and so
Okay.
forth.
I got some pictures.
Shirley?
I'd just like to mention, because there were 2 women from Campbell County who did the honor flight. And tomorrow, Marvin and I are interviewing the second woman that went on that flight. So
What's
we're
her
just
name?
absolutely delighted to find them.
Did you have a question, ma'am?
Yeah, are you still taking pictures with those forms?
Yes, absolutely. We'll take whatever information you would like to share about your veterans.
Discharge papers, anything like that, you know, copies of them, anything like that would be great to add to it. All right, very good. Do we have an Evergreen Cemetery report tonight, anybody?
They still are having meetings. They have some committees working on small projects. They would like to raise money also to fix the road, the potholes in the roads is their main focus. So,
Yeah, now I understand they only have 4 full-time people that mow grass. It depends on prisoners to be brought out to help mow the grass. Or that's how far down they are right at the moment.
Ken,
Shame. Okay, we did, as you mentioned earlier, yes, Martha.
while you're talking about money, I got a report on the Bob Evans.
Okay, yeah, go
When we
ahead.
were there September the 10th, was it, or the 20th? Well, anyway, 10th. They had a return of 36 flyers, which is how they could count who was there. The average check was $17, and we raised $91. Now that's, so I told Ken that we should do that at least once a year.
Yeah, we should have. It's a great idea.
Yeah. And I think Bob Evans is a nice place, rather than Applebee's or something. It was. So if you handed out flyers or passed them on to someone, thank you, because that's what it takes.
As we mentioned earlier in the minutes, we did do a office clean out of old technology and things like that. We had grand ideas of what it was going to bring us, and as you heard, we made almost $20. I think I spent more than that in gas taking my truck and trailer over there. But it was just one of those kind of things. A lot of stuff is plastic and had no value at all. Some things that were metal, it's only 22 cents a pound. So, I mean, I took aluminum cans from my own house and made $29. So, actually, I made more of my aluminum cans than I did the whole trailer load of stuff I'm pulling behind me. So that's the way it goes. Okay. And we already talked about more phone callers coming in. I guess election results.
we had a tie.
Well, they had to fight it out.
All of our officers were unanimously reelected, no write-ins. Our 3-year term people were both reelected. I did want to mention, Dan Christian is now serving as our secretary. Jan Mueller had to resign from the board. I don't know if that was, I wasn't here at the last meeting. She has some health issues. She was our secretary. She had to resign. Also, our new seats, our 3 open seats, we have a couple of longtime board members who are retiring. Daryl Pauley and Martha Pelfrey have decided to go off the board after many, many years for each of them. So that is why we had several other open seats. But our 2 of our board members are Glenn, Elsener, and Mark. We have a tie for Carol and Jeff. Do we vote between the 2?
It's interesting, we have a tie that after almost 15 years has never been a contested election at all.
Who needs one? Anybody?
All right, go ahead and collect those, retabulate them, come in for our future meetings very quickly. Okay, December, we're going to be back here again for our Christmas meeting. I'm asking you to bring something with you that night to share with the group for as far as food. I'll supply drinks. I've already been assured we're not going to get kicked out of our room downstairs this year. We're supposed to be down there. Recontact the Hills Kentucky Dulcimers. play for us that night, and we have a plaque to give away that evening as well. On January the 14th, we're going to be back here. Bill Stoltz is going to come and talk about the history of Bellevue preservation and Bellevue itself. On February 11th, we're going to be back here. Don Sorrell's coming from the Campbell County Agricultural District. He's going to talk about the agriculture in Campbell County, past and present, and a little bit about the 4-H program and how that works. For those who don't live in the country, you may not be familiar with 4-H. March the 10th, we're going to be here, and Dave Shorter is going to come from the Kenton County Public Library and talk to us about St. Joseph Orphanage in Cold Spring. 19th is History Day at NKU. On the 14th, we're going to be back here, and we're going to be talking about Marx's Playground, was down in Ross. I mean, some of you may remember swimming in that ice-cold water back down there. I mean, after people talking about their breath being taken away as they jumped in that, I guess it was well water, wasn't it? Yeah. It's really cold. So anyway, that's the topic, and I'm working on several more. I'm trying to get us into the log cabin at NKU this summer so we can visit that old cabin they rebuilt. That's one of my goals. I'm going to talk to Brian Hackett. Pam, I'm talking to get us to do a talk on Italians in Newport, and we'll probably meet in Newport someplace. I wanted Pompilio, but I hope they're going to shut down for us just to have a meeting, so probably someplace else. And then I'm going to invite Don Tolzmann back to talk about George Wienerman, so that's the future meetings coming up. Okay, yes.
A gentleman came up 2 weeks ago from the Woodman
Woodman of the World.
And he gave us 3 5x8 flags to hang off the courthouse. I'm going to be scraping the courthouse and flags again.
So he is big ones?
He gave us big ones.
Have you talked to Mike Braun about that?
I did, and we did get it this year, but we'll get it for the spring to put new grommets up and run new cable lines for the.
Okay.
He was all excited with that, but we do have the flags up at the office now. And if we need any other flags, he's the gentleman to ask, and he collects old flags as well that needs to be destroyed properly. So we've got a source for our stars for the veterans.
Stars for our troops, right.
So we have a source for that project as well now.
The city of Alexandria is also going to give us some used flags for that purpose as well. And follow up.
Explain to everybody what that is again.
You may have read about it in our last newsletter. There were 2 projects that we're going to do as part of our veteran collection. And one is Stars for Our Troops. Many of you may have already seen these stars being circulated, but you take and properly retire and respectfully retire a worn, used American flag that has embroidered stars on it. You cut the star out and you put it in a little plastic sleeve, and there is a little poem that goes inside that sleeve also, thanking the veteran for their service. When you see a veteran, if they haven't had a star, you give them one and thank them for their service, and it is so that they can put it in their pocket and feel the star without even seeing it. We thought it would be a good idea to do that as we go out in the community and go to different functions, or when we have veterans who themselves fill out a veteran form. Just a little way to show them that we appreciate it. But we have to have embroidered stars and we have to have used flags. That's the purpose of it. And when we're finished cutting stars out of the canton, we will respectfully and properly destroy the flag, as flag etiquette calls for. So that is that one. And then the other project that is underway is Women in War at the home front and abroad. And that is where we're going to try and put together a collection of women who have served in some capacity during the hardship of war. And we're not just talking about women veterans. We're talking about what did women do at home. Maybe you did a victory garden, or maybe you had sons or daughters in the service, and you could talk a little bit about your feelings, how that impacted the family. Because, you know, the saying is when our sons and daughters go to war, the whole family's in war, because they are the support system for these veterans. So that's the kind of thing we want to build upon. So the honor flight interviews that we're doing now is going to be documented. We had another lady who served in one of the wars. She served in one of the support companies who did assigned serial numbers to military equipment. So it's those kinds of things. You find all kinds of different jobs that men and women did in an effort to support our veterans of war. So that's what we're doing. That's what it's all about.
Okay, thank you. Jan, do we have a result?
We do, barely. Carol Rich is our new board member.
All right. All right.
We're going to hold Jeff to the fact that he says he's still going to stay heavily involved.
Oh, yes. It's not going to be that easy.
Thank you very much, everybody, for those who ran, and Jeff, we appreciate it very much. Don't forget to bring some goodies for the Christmas meeting and show up with bells on. We'll have a good night that night. We have Tolzmann Kentucky Dolphins playing for us. Thank you. Have a safe trip home.